May 2019, and a police helicopter in the dark spots a man up a tree sitting in the branches hiding. He's Britain's most wanted man. He's attacked 11 people in 15 days. The youngest was 11 years old, the eldest was 71. Hundreds of officers have been hunting him. The thing that makes this a national scandal is that this man was supposed to be in prison. Not should have been caught sooner. This man was meant to be in a cell. Years earlier, a judge decided this man was so dangerous, he was only to be released if a panel of experts said it was safe to do so. This is the case of Joseph McCann. This is the True Crime Room with Emma. Joseph McCann was born in London in February 1985. He was first locked up at just 15 years of age. By his 20s, he had a long list of charges, including burglary, robbery and violence. He had no sexual convictions at that stage, but did have a history of being violent with his partners. There are two types of prison sentence. The first runs on a calendar. You get 3 years, you probably serve half, and then you're released. The second has no date at all. It's for people the courts reckon are genuinely dangerous, and back then it was called an IPP, imprisonment for public protection. You did serve a minimum term, but you then just stayed inside until a panel of experts deemed you safe to be released into society. And after McCann broke into an elderly man's home, that's what he got. He got an IPP, which is the system saying that this person doesn't leave on a date. This person leaves when an expert says that it's safe to do so. He serves about 10 years of it, and in February of 2017, he's let out on licence. He still has this IPP, so at any point he can be dragged back to prison. He's also still heavily supervised. It's a safety net for people they deem dangerous. It's there, but in 6 months' time, it completely falls away. In August of 2017, Joseph McCann is held in custody. This is the first point that they could have just immediately imprisoned him. Nobody did. And in January of 2018, he's sentenced to 3 years for burglary and robbery. Now, the judge giving that sentence said that it was meant to run alongside the IPP. But for some reason, that IPP just fell away, and Joseph McCann ended up being just another ordinary prisoner serving a 3-year sentence. But he served around half of it and then was released. There was no hearing, no panel, no experts. He was just released back into the community, and he no longer had his IPP. So in February of 2019, he walks out of prison, and when they look back at the failures, they see 8 missed opportunities to recall him. And these failures mainly stem from understaffing, high staff turnover, huge caseloads, and a pressure from above, a political pressure, to stop recalling prisoners because the prisons were so full. This was just an overstretched system, quietly dropping probably the most important file on their desk. After he got out, he saw a probation officer around 10 times in just under 2 months. One of those visits was just 3 days before his first attack. I'm going to take you through these assaults, but I'm only going to give very basic information. All of these victims are living, and 4 of them are children. I am going to tell you though how they escaped, because this is part of the story that seems to get skipped a lot. They got themselves out. There was no man or woman in uniform. Almost nobody here was rescued. They got themselves out, one at a time, with whatever was to hand. A bottle, a window, a knife, and a wrong turn. 21st of April in 2019 in Watford, a 21-year-old woman is walking home from a night out. Joseph McCann attacks her at knife point and drags her into his car. He takes her to a house and rapes her. He lets her go later that morning. She immediately goes to the police station and reports it. 4 days later, just after midnight in East London, a 25-year-old woman is walking home when he grabs her at knife point and drags her into his car. What follows lasts around 14 hours. He drives her all over North London and out through Epping Forest. And whilst he's got her in the car, he stops at Edgware and grabs another woman off the street, a 21-year-old who is walking along with her sister. Both these women fight him, and her sister manages to escape. Once clear, she raises the alarm immediately, calling 999. She's just watched a man drag her sister into a car at knife point and then driven off. He then drives these two women to Watford, and this tells you everything about how relaxed he felt. He booked a room for 2 nights. CCTV captures him walking around in a baseball cap and tracksuit. He holds the front door open, glancing over his shoulder continuously at the car, while he raps at the reception window trying to get the attention of staff. Back at the car, he orders the 2 young women to put their arms around him and smile as they make their way towards the hotel. Instead, the 25-year-old grabs a bottle of vodka and smashes it over his head. Both women ran. The 25-year-old ran up to a group of builders saying, I've been kidnapped, I need your phone. But they couldn't understand her. It was a language barrier. In the worst moment of her life, she couldn't get help. So she just kept running, and a man saw her and ushered her into his shop. She ran in and just broke down in tears. She looks out of the shop window and sees Joseph driving off in the car. Believing that the other woman is still in there, the first thing she feels is guilt. The first thing she did, sobbing in a stranger's shop, having just escaped 14 hours of hell, was to tell them that the other woman was still out there and they needed to get help. Luckily, she was wrong. The 21-year-old had escaped as well and just ran. 2 builders, who were later commended by the judge, helped to protect them. This escape gave police everything because of what she remembered and reported. A white man, blue eyes, what she described as a weird Irish accent, a white rosary, a tattoo saying Bobby. Plus they had the hotel's CCTV. He was identified within hours. And when she gave evidence about smashing that bottle over his head, she said she just used logic, not courage. That's how composed she was about the worst thing that has ever happened to her. Meanwhile, Joseph McCann proceeded to run north, and on the 5th of May, he ended up in Lancashire. He talks his way into a woman's house that he'd met on a night out. Once inside, he ties her up with electrical cable and threatens to slit her throat. He then commits offences against her 17-year-old daughter and 11-year-old son. He tells those children that they belong to him, that they're all going to go to Europe tomorrow. The eldest 17-year-old girl was frightened that she was going to become a sex slave. That family, all 3 of them, got themselves out. And it's remarkable. The 17-year-old jumped from a 1st floor window. She broke her heel doing it and then hobbled all the way to a relative's house to raise the alarm. Her 11-year-old brother ran downstairs, grabbed the knife that McCann had discarded and used it to cut his mother free from the electrical cables. As he's using this knife to cut through those electrical cables, he says to his mum, "Mum, quick, let's just get out the back door." He's just 11 years old and he's picked up his own attacker's knife to free his mum. She said back to him, "Hold on to me. Run like you've never run before and you get out." All 3 of them managed to escape and were reunited. The mother broke down sobbing and just said, "It's okay, we're all alive." Later that same day in Manchester, a 71-year-old lady has just finished her shopping. She's about to drive out of the Morrison's car park when McCann jumps into her passenger seat. She screams at him to get out, get out. He punches her in the face and tells her he's got a knife and that he's just killed someone. She's driven to an industrial estate and raped. He then uses her bank card to get money out of a cash machine. Whilst there, he drags a 13-year-old girl into the back of the car. He then orders the 71-year-old lady to drive. He wants her to go to Manchester. He's drinking and messing about and not really looking where they're going, so she decides to go the other way. A pensioner in her own car, having been punched in the face, kidnapped, and a frightened child in the back, quietly steers the car in the other direction. She got them to a busy service station on the M6. Once there, she and the 13-year-old girl ran. A woman called Lisa Smith rushed to their aid, while Joseph McCann sped off in the pensioner's car. That evening in Cheshire, in this stolen car, he forces 2 14-year-old girls into the back seat. Their friends, 3 teenage boys, desperately try to stop him. When they couldn't, they run to a nearby shop and immediately call 999. That call is the reason a patrol was already out looking for that car. CCTV picked him up, stopping at a Shell garage on the way. The attendant said afterwards he seemed angry, nervous, in a rush. Minutes after he pulled out, police spotted the car. And that is why those 2 girls were not raped. The police interrupted him because 3 teenage boys made a phone call. He crashed the car and ran into the countryside on foot. 10 hours later, the helicopter picks him up, hiding in the branches of a tree. Negotiators talked him down. He was arrested and driven away under a blanket. So we have 11 victims, and the people who actually ended it were a woman with a vodka bottle, a sister who ran and dialed 999, a 17-year-old who jumped out of a first-story window, an 11-year-old boy who grabbed his own attacker's knife, a 71-year-old who took a wrong turn on purpose, 3 lads who rang the police, 2 builders and a shopkeeper, and a woman at a motorway service who saw 2 frightened strangers and didn't just walk past. Not one hero in a uniform among them until the very last hour. At trial, Mr. Justice Edis said that he read every single victim's personal statement more than once over a weekend, and he set out the themes running through them: battling distressing memories, psychological damage, feelings of guilt, which he called genuine but irrational, and in some cases, a real sense of having been let down by society and by the very services that are supposed to help victims of serious crime. One woman told the court that her life had gone from thriving to surviving. The 25-year-old, who was held for 14 hours, said that she had to pay for her own therapy because the NHS waiting list was up to a year. She used her victim impact statement to criticise the serious under-resourcing there is for survivors. The 17-year-old said that before the attack, she had a loving home, a close family, and a great job. Afterwards, she lost everything, including her family home of 12 years and her relationship with her family. She says she lives in fear. She struggles to sleep. She has deep anxiety. She can't be in places on her own, and her confidence is gone. This is what crimes actually do. They're not headlines. They reroute and destroy people's lives. Detectives from 5 forces built this case together. The officer who led it, Detective Chief Inspector Catherine Goodwin, called him one of the most dangerous sex offenders this country has ever seen. And McCann, he refused to take part. He didn't turn up to his own month-long trial at the Old Bailey. When it came time to give evidence, he hid under a prison blanket. On the 6th of December 2019, the jury found him unanimously guilty. All 37 counts, 7 rapes, plus the rape of a child, kidnap, false imprisonment, and a string of offences against children. He didn't turn up for sentencing either, said he had a bad back and wouldn't even appear on a video link. So the jurors came instead. They didn't have to, but they did. He was given 33 life sentences and a minimum term of 30 years. The judge called him a coward, a violent bully, and a paedophile. He noticed how McCann had not expressed a single word of regret, and how his victims would probably never get over their trauma. He also called for an independent investigation to discover why the system had failed. Later, believing that the sentence was too lenient, Joseph McCann's minimum term was increased to 40 years, which means he will be in his mid-70s before he is even eligible for parole. So what happened to the system that let this man out? An internal inquiry was done, and these reports usually are not published. In this case, it was. It was seen as a matter of public protection. Staff were disciplined. The Prime Minister called it appalling. However, it is very easy to get our pitchforks out. This was a system that was heavily under-resourced, lacked staff, and there was pressure from above in politics to not recall prisoners because the prisons were so full. Head of departments apologised unreservedly, but none of that takes away from the trauma those 11 people suffered. A trauma that is compounded permanently by knowing he could and should have been behind bars when it happened. I've told you nothing about Joseph McCann's past here, and that's because there's nothing to unpick. He was a man that wanted to and did hurt people. He thought he'd get away with it. He was someone who was so contemptuous of the whole thing, he hid under a blanket rather than face the people he'd harmed. I'm not going to leave you with him though. I'm going to leave you with what the judge said instead. Because the thing that affected him most wasn't the violence, it was the body-worn camera footage of women who had just escaped, terrified that by saving themselves, they'd abandoned the people they love. He needed to be told they'd done the right thing, and his answer in open court was just 3 words. They certainly had. If anything has affected you in this episode, please reach out to Rape Crisis England and Wales. They run a 24/7 service. You don't have to have reported anything to get help. That was the case of Joseph McCann. This was the True Crime Room with Emma. If you like my content, please remember to like, subscribe and comment. I have a podcast which you can access wherever you get your podcasts. If you can, please feel free to leave a review and comment. As always, take care of yourselves and hit the notification button so that you can join us next time.